So if you've noticed, we've gone through a couple of days of this new year, 2021. And I don't know about you, but the real question in my heart is how in the world could the Steelers lose to the Philadelphia Flyers of the NFL and the Cleveland Browns twice? And now the Penguins last night lost to the Cleveland Browns of the NHL and are probably going to lose tomorrow night as well. And notice, the black and gold played the same ugly brown colored teams in both of those scenarios. It's enough to truly harden your heart and realize we are in a time of great distress, almost like an athletic sports team pandemic. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the Pirates, they're more hopeless than both of those teams. And so we're definitely in a time where we need to mask ourselves from these sports teams and try to find a new cure for life. It seems like a vaccine couldn't come soon enough for our sports teams. And the thing is that Jesus's people, the people of Israel, God's people, they were on just a journey to go from Egypt up to the Holy Land. It should take 40 days. And it took them 40 years, and none of them that actually left Egypt made it to the Holy Land. And in the book of Hebrews today, what do we hear? We hear that call, that cry of the psalmist, which speaks out in Psalm 95 saying, if today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. What hardens our hearts? From hearing, experiencing, and knowing, and enjoying God's love for us. It's so good for us to wrestle with that because it's real. Like, we know God's love is infinite. There's nothing more powerful. There's nothing more urgent. There's nothing more important than to be loved by God. And if we don't experience the depths and the profundity and the reality of his love for us, then it must mean that our hearts are hardened. And so we need to know, what in the heck do we do to harden our hearts, to be able to almost block that? Because it's real. All these people in Israel were headed to the Holy Land, and none of them made it. And so they spent 40 years wandering around in the desert. If we spend our lives wandering around and not get to heaven, then we too are going to have the same fate as them. And so the Lord Jesus shows us the cure to that. To kneel down, to prostrate ourselves, and to recognize we have a hardness of heart, we have leprosy. We have this desire in our hearts to choose sin over God, to choose evil over goodness, to even root for the Cleveland Browns and the Philadelphia Flyers over the Pittsburgh teams. That's what starts to happen inside of us. Our hearts get hardened. And so that's why this year the church presents to us the great gift of St. Joseph. And what is the title in which the Pope sends out this letter? From the heart of the Father. There was no father on earth who was more open, whose heart was more tender, more courageous, more valiant than St. Joseph's. So let us, during this year of St. Joseph, take our hardened heart to him, so that from the heart of the Father, Joseph's the icon of God the Father, so that we too can receive that great goodness of God and pour into his heart, our hard heart, so that we receive from the heart of the Father that tender, that courageous, and that pure love of God. So that no matter what the Steelers, the Pirates, the Penguins, no matter what happens, and even in the circumstances around us with the political situation, the weather, all those exterior circumstances only do one thing for us. They open up our hearts more than ever to God's love.